Hello and welcome back everyone to the next session for today with Sandeep Sangaru, furniture designer and owner of the Sangaru Design Studio in Bangalore. Sandeep is a multidisciplinary designer, educator and entrepreneur with a degree in industrial design specializing in furniture design from the National Institute of Design, Ahmedabad. His work is informed by a significant commitment to local material and local knowledge. He loves to capture, communicate, and create through his work of collaborative experiments with different craft communities. To make all these explorations tangible, he founded the Sangaru Design Studio and Sangaru Design Objects, which creates new innovation, knowledge, and markets to inspire the younger generation to practice these sustainable methods. Sandeep is the recipient of the Red Dot Design Award, Best of the Best 2009, the Design for Asia Grand Award 2011, the British Council's Young Creative Entrepreneur Award Design for Social Impact in 2012, and the JSW and AD Craft Prize for Contemporary Craftsmanship 2020. Sandeep, it's a pleasure to have you amongst us today. Thank you so much for joining, and over to you now.
Thank you. Okay, so here I'm going to share my journey as an individual, as a human being, trying to find my bearings of what I am going to do with my life. And it all started as a kid. I always used to wander around and trying to find things that excite me and intrigue me. And the resources were all outside rather than going to a library or reading through books. So I was mostly outdoors. And as I was growing up, schooling happened. And when schooling ended and one has to decide what to choose and go ahead with your further studies so that you can build a steady career. That's when I stumbled on my thoughts and trying to find what is that I would like to do. And for me, wandering around was something that I wanted to do. Like I wanted to travel, experience different places, ways of life. All these might have been influenced by things that I had access to while I was growing up, looking into National Geographic magazines and stories. And as a family, we used to spend a lot of time in my grandmother's farm in the village. So I was quite excited about living with the nature and people who are away from our city life, trying to kind of achieve something in life, which even they didn't know. So I was not very sure about my own self. So my understanding then was I was good with hands. I could make things, build things. And I wanted to pick up a career where I could use those skills. And I wanted to travel. So these were two things that I was primarily looking at, where which career would give me these options. One was design, but design in the sense I didn't know how what design was then incomplete. So the most common design career in that time was fashion design. NIFT was very popular, so it was you could see in magazines, publications, and people doing fashion design. And the second option was architecture, where you design buildings and houses. But I was not very keen on these two because they were not my forte of exploring. Architecture was too large and too big, but I had keen interest on how people design and build things. So I started looking into options. So then I stumbled upon NID, National Institute of Design, a feature in a magazine. This was in 1989 when I was just finishing my school, and I read about it, and uh, I was wondering how do we apply for it, because at that time there was no internet, so everything depended on looking into newspapers or writing to the institute to figure out how do we go about it. And I was a kid, so and didn't have access to a lot of resources. So one fine day in the newspaper, we saw the ad, and I applied for it. And my parents asked me, "What is this institute? What does it do? What are you want to do after studying design and all that?" And I didn't have any answers to any of them uh, because I didn't have access to what designers were doing at that time as a career. So the other option was me to look into option where I could travel, and we had a lot of family friends where uh, they were working in merchant navy, and they had a wonderful a combination of life and work where they would travel for as many days and they get leave uh, to work to leave just like a holiday, and they would be doing a lot of interesting stuff in their homes. So I was very curious about that option of joining merchant navy, and what are the possibilities, and what do I have to do to become a merchant navy engineer or a captain. So one option was to do engineering and get into merchant navy. So since I couldn't convince my parents about design, the option that left to me was engineering. And they said after engineering, you do whatever you feel like taking up, because this will lay a foundation for your studies and give you a set opportunity. If not, something doesn't work, then you can always fall back to this option. I'll just share my screen now. Yeah, can you see? So I finished my engineering, then applied for an ID, and I fortunately got through. And by that time, I had read more about design and got to know more about the institute. Not much, but good enough for me to kind of say, okay, I'm gonna take it forward and study design. Um, so once I got through, I was excited, and I had to call NID a few times to just to confirm that I was selected, because I was not sure about their call. So yeah, so once I entered, joined NID, it opened a lot of doors to me. First thing was what they asked me to do was all the students when we, well, just like you, a day like this where we were introduced to design and what we have to do. The first thing it was mentioned to unlearn to learn, and uh, till that point I never kind of consciously tried to learn anything. It was more of exploration, trying to find it myself, wandering around. And I think the first class gave me this happiness, internal happiness. Okay, there is here is something that we don't have to learn but unlearn things to take forward. So at NID, it was all about, while studying, it was all about learning by doing, sharing with your peers, your ideas, and building on things that you love to pursue. And uh, and I was fortunate because as a campus, it allowed me to explore a lot of things, because there was so much under one roof that was accessible to students through the week and the months, and it gave me a certain direction okay, this is what I would like to continue and explore. So I was more of hands-on. So I would be, and I joined into furniture design after being my mechanical engineer. And a lot of people ask me why you want to do furniture, why don't you join product design? But at that point of time, I was very keen on doing graphic design. Uh, and As a mechanical engineer, I couldn't apply to visual communication. That was uh, not in the selection criteria. So I opted for industrial design and decided to do furniture. Uh, and it all happened. These decisions were not planned, so it was all like gut feeling that okay, furniture would allow me to build things myself, make things, and realize something quickly. Uh, Coming from a background of mechanical engineering, because I've done that 4-year engineering course, I knew what it takes to develop a product and industrially produce it. And that is what something that I was not looking ahead, but something that I can uh, do myself. So furniture was the only choice I had, and I don't regret doing furniture. But when I was at NID, I became more hands-on. I used to spend a lot of time in the workshop, building, making things, and that made me a craftsman. No, and very skill in using tools and materials. Uh, so after finishing NID, there is a small thing that happened while we were students. We were a group of friends very um, keen on doing special effects like for movies, and we were fans of Star Wars and Space Odyssey. And we were wondering why Indian films don't make films like this. And we thought we can build something and see if we can create a portfolio of work. While we were students, we explored a lot of these possibilities. And then we started a studio immediately after graduating in Hyderabad to do with special effects. And I worked in the film industry for almost 3-4 years. And also, I had developed a keen interest in photography and cinematography. And I worked as an assistant cameraman and went about exploring uh, cinematography as a tool and a skill to understand how it works. But after 3-4 years, I realized working in film industry is not my cup of tea, and I need to find something else. And one fine day, I got a call from NID again to come and if I would be interested to join as a faculty and teach design. And without thinking, I said yes, and ended up preparing for an interview, and they selected me to join as a faculty. The only reason I went about because I wanted to go back to the place, the campus, and explore more and find myself again. So at NID, while I was a faculty, I worked on a few projects which opened up a window to crafts and handicrafts of our country. And one of my first trips was to Tripura, where NID was setting up an institute called BCDI, Bamboo and Cane Development Institute. And they were developing this program for artisans and craftsmen. And my assignment was to go and teach artisans how to draw and also draw technical drawings and read a drawing and convert those drawings into products. So this program for the artisans was aimed at to upskill them with modern tools so that they can connect with the outside world, like designers, architects, artists, and create uh, uh, and bring in the knowledge of the traditional art forms and material in collaboration with these people to create something new and grow the craft that they are uh, uh, skilled in. Um, but I landed there, and I had no clue about. I had to work with bamboo artisans, and before going there, I had no clue about bamboo and working with artisans. So this assignment and this project allowed me to kind of get a first-hand, hands-on experience of working with traditional artisans. So once I landed there, I saw everything was in bamboo, and it was a way of life. And me coming from a city or a town, for us, bamboo was more like a ladder or scaffoldings or a hut that can be built with bamboo. But what I saw there was much more to bamboo. It was a way of life. They would use bamboo in their everyday living, and they would make these beautiful, very refined uh, solutions to help uh, organize their everyday life just with one material and a single tool. And that intrigued me to think as an industrial designer and as a furniture designer to how one tool and one material can be used in so many ways, and and so versatile in its application, from homes to baskets to rafts to water containers. And this exposure, along with working with the artisans that I went to teach. So in this slide, you see uh, the the class that I was teaching, and they were craftsmen from different parts of Northeast and Chhattisgarh and Bihar. And here I was trying to teach drawing and technical drawing, where uh, uh, the language was a barrier, and the tools that I used to communicate with them was basically visual. Everything was visual, and talking in broken language mixed with English, Hindi, a bit of whatever I could gather locally, and communicate what I was trying to teach them or show them. And this exposure allowed me to kind of engage with a group of people where uh, the way of learning is again by doing. And my education in design helped me uh, interacting with them, because we were mostly doing stuff, and demonstrating something was much more easier way to communicate rather than trying to explain it verbally. So these things, over a period of time, I realized upskilled me as a designer and as an individual, trying to find my bearings as a designer. And this whole process excited me, and and I decided then and there that I want to be working with the craft sector, and explore and see if I can connect and do something in this sector. Um, but at the end of the this assignment, which was for almost 8 weeks long, um, and seeing all that they do in their everyday life using this material, I felt, how can I contribute more? And I didn't have any answers again. Uh, so I thought maybe I may not be coming back to Northeast or Tripura and will be working, but the whole material and the whole process excited me, and I wanted to bring back something with me as a memory. And on the last few days, I tried to replicate something that I had designed before in bamboo. And that was a turning point, because here, while I was trying to do this, I wanted to also make the uh, seat in bamboo. So on the left, what you see is something that I had done before in solid wood and canvas as a seat. And here I was trying to do the same thing in bamboo. Initially, I thought I'll just make the 3 sticks and put a canvas seat on it. But then I realized that I've done nothing than just using 3 bamboo poles. There was nothing more to it in terms of craftsmanship being put into the product. Uh, so, trying to make the seat in a triangular shape, I ended up making a technique, developing a technique, uh, which when we made, the whole group told me, Sandeep, we never made something like this before. And that was my moment that, okay, here is something that I created that was not uh, developed with the same material before. And that gave me an exciting possibility to explore, to see if that technique can be taken forward. So I came back uh, with this particular triangular component, which you see the boy is holding. I left the part of the stool there, and that became a journey for the next many years till today. And I called it Trust Me. It's a basic triangular uh, component, and I wanted to use this particular technique further. So I came back and explored how to use this as a functional product. So then this triangle itself became the stool, and the uniqueness of this particular module was that it was very light in weight, and it could take tons of load. Uh, to tell you the weight, it approximately weighs around 200 to 50 grams, but you can put a lot of load. So it had a unique possibility of weight to load bearing ratio. So I was trying to figure out if I can explore further and use it in making products. Uh, so I explored different modules and forms, and try to give some meaning in form of a product that can be taken forward. And that happened then, and then I left NID, uh, started my own studio where I started to work with the craft sector. And one of the projects, again, that came across um, from Northeast was to bamboo furniture making. And I continued the whole technique, and to see if we can commercialize products made out of this technique. Since this technique never existed before, it was all new to the traditional craftsmen, and it was very unique for them to also explore it. So we developed a set of prototypes, sampled them, and in the process of the interaction, the artisans were very skeptical about the design. They felt um, this product won't stand, and it'll break, and the structure may not work, because I was trying to use bamboo as minimally as possible in the structure in terms of its expression. So usually, traditionally, when you see bamboo furniture, they are very bulky. They're made out of solid bamboo poles, and and uh, uh, aesthetically they were not so pleasing to a lot of users. So here was something completely different, and um, trying to push the boundaries with a new technique. But once we started putting the prototypes, we realized that it has more than required structural stability. And that's how, because everything was new, because I only made these few products earlier. We never made a furniture as such. So the first pieces of furniture kind of made us develop understanding to how bamboo can be transformed into something which we don't really associate with that material in terms of form and function and the language of expression. And one day, one of my interns at my studio asked me, Sandeep, what are you doing with this soul bamboo? Trust me that you've developed. So I said, no, it's just a project. We developed some products and nothing happened after that. It never went ahead for production or get the artisan making them to sell in the market. Uh, but he was very curious because he said this is a very good, great concept, and he suggested me to apply for the Red Dot award. And I was very curious about the award because I never heard of it before. But after a long story, we won the award that year, and it was awarded the best of the best. And that's when I realized that the things that I was making for so many years was kind of appreciated by many, and we started getting inquiries from around the world, and we were featured along with a lot of major design-led companies, which were benchmarks in the market. And this triggered a lot of things, and a lot of inquiries started coming in from people who wanted to buy the furniture. So since no one was making them, I started a company to produce them, working along with artisans and craftsmen, and bridge the gap from the farmer who grows the bamboo to the market. And this kind of gave me a platform and opportunity to see if a certain design that we design can be produced and be sold in the market. So it was just, as a designer, we always think of just designing a product, and there are people who will take care of the rest of the things. But here, as a studio, I was trying to do everything, right from design to developing them, to make it production friendly, and to take it forward to the market and see if people like it and want to own them. So that became my journey thereafter, to kind of take this particular material and traditional way of making things by hand, and see if we could create a market, and also the main challenge was encourage the younger generation of artisan to continue practicing the craft. Because what happens when you're working with the craft sector, it's a disorganized, decentralized way of working. It's not a 9 to 6 job for them. It's a way of life. So every craft, traditional craft that you see in our country, is part of the culture, part of their life, and they make those products when it's required to be made, and they make it for their own local community. But over the period, many generations, these were commercialized through craft bazaars, craft emporiums, as in traditional Indian craft forms. And the artisans and craftsmen were asked to only replicate those traditional products, and were asked to make them in numbers, and asked to make them cheaper and cheaper, so that they can sell it to a wider audience. So what happened over the generations was the skill of the craftsmen diminished, and because they were trying to make the product cheaper, when you ask someone to make something cheaper, they will try to cut costs and try to cut time to make the product happen, because the amount or the returns that they get from making the product was not so tangible for them to sustain if they would craft it very finely. And the younger generation, in reflection, didn't want to continue because they didn't see any value in it. So the all objective here when I started my company was if I could uh, in some way try and initiate a process where a younger generation of craftsmen uh, would like to take this craft up and continue practicing with the knowledge that they have with the material. Because me as a designer, I don't know much about bamboo. They know about the material much. And when we collaborate, the output becomes magical and very uh, new. So we started making. So this was our first collection, and when I started my company, it took almost 3 years to sell my first product because a lot of people associate bamboo again with being a very cheap material because it grows fast and it can be if it deteriorates over a period of time, they can throw it away and replace it with something else or a new bamboo. But here, the whole technique and the process was so time consuming. The product cost was quite high, and people were not, the perceived value of the material was not showing for them. And but the awards and the publications helped me build a story about what the material is, and my understanding of bamboo also grew over a period of time to convince people that bamboo is as good as any other material that can be uh, used for a longer duration of time. And so our challenge was to kind of produce a product which could be produced in numbers and also in quality and with a certain consistency that people could appreciate the value of the craftsmanship and the product they're trying to buy. So to do this, it was a long struggle. It was a constant thing between trying to make something in numbers and just create a livelihood, or push ourselves to create something very unique which stands on its own, so no one has to talk about it. So you see a product, you understand what's gone into making it. And my team here, my initial team that were all craftsmen from Tripura. And I'll cut short. So we had our first client from China. We did a boutique hotel, and that kicked off a lot of interest because um, when I started this facility unit to produce, I was looking for funds, and no one was ready to put in funds into the venture because they were not sure about the manufacturing of furniture and selling them, that it can grow to a scale that it becomes profitable. And a lot of people advised me to, why don't you just trade furniture from China and make a business out of it. But I felt there was something more to it, so I continued doing this stuff. And once we got this project, and this was our first client, and we did this hotel. And here, when people were saying to get furniture from China, we were actually shipping our first lot back to China, which was exciting in a way as a first milestone in my journey after we started producing the products. Then it triggered off to many things, and now to the hotel in China. It was a boutique hotel, so a lot of very important people used to come and stay there. So one of the curators from Christie stayed in the hotel, and she liked the furniture. And along with the owner, they were trying. They had a discussion maybe, or the owner also was asking me to kind of build a special collection so that he could sell it to the to the people who were appreciating the furniture and they wanted to buy in when they stayed in the hotel. So we were discussing about how to make it more special. And so we made this first piece, which got so the Christie's director took to the Christie's auction house, and it was auctioned there. To kind of the whole exercise just happened very organically, and nothing was planned. But it kind of completed a loop for me, because when I started, it was just a material where I was not very sure how to take it forward. But after almost 8 years of doing this constantly, we were at a place where it was auctioned in an auction house in Shanghai and London. And that showed us that we can take something which is very traditional and make it the contemporary through design and craftsmanship, and innovate new ways of making and solving everyday problems. So the problem that here I was again trying to address was to kind of show an opportunity to the craftsmen that there are more possibilities to the knowledge and the skill that they have. And if we explore it and take it further, we can create new paradigms. And that's how it all started. And right now, we are producing all this furniture in bamboo. I'm just showing you a few slides of the furniture. So yeah, when you look at these pieces, a lot of people ask me, is it bamboo, when they see the picture, because it really doesn't look like something that they have seen before in bamboo. But now this became our language, and we started producing more stuff. There are a lot of new inquiries coming in to do installation, explore the material in different ways. And yeah, it as a designer, as an individual, it allowed me to also, when I started my journey, trying to find where I stand and what I wanted to do. So everything fell in place of making things by hand, wandering around different places, working with different artisans, working with new materials and new techniques. In bamboo, when you see there are different, we see bamboo as one material, but when you look at a traditional bamboo artisan, he looks at bamboo as different species. There are so many species of bamboo, and every species has its own strength, and it can be used in different ways. The bamboo that is used for making baskets cannot be used for making structures or furniture. The one bamboo that is used for making furniture has to be really strong structurally and all that. So there are different species which I can learn about, and how each species and each technique can be used further. So here, this was another design that won another award in Red Dot. Yeah. How much time we have?
Sandeep, we're actually up for time.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, so this is the bamboo story. Similarly, I started working with different craft sectors in Kashmir, in Chennapatna, where we develop a lot of products in a similar format, where we try to push ourselves and take it further. If you look at my Instagram handle, sangaru.design, you will be able to see a lot of those products, which kind of, the whole idea is to push the boundaries of traditional craftsmanship and knowledge of material, and bringing in design and design thinking, and make something unique to the place and belongs to our country, but in a very contemporary way.
All right. As interesting as your presentation has been, I'm sorry we're up for time. So, Sandeep, I'm sure that your design journey, which started with your indecisiveness and the pressure of making choices, is something that the students can relate to today, as they have just chosen design as their career option, and they're taking their first steps into it. So your journey is embellished with your experiments, your explorations, interactions, and connections, which shows an amazing learning curve that I do hope the students can aspire for. Thank you so much for sharing all your work with Bamboo. It's so important today to work with the craft sector, in design intervention and product diversification. And you have set the bar really high with that. Thank you so much for sharing that with us and for being a part of our event, Your Identity, and for making the time for our students. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. Yeah.